the original Mahabharata, that uh, is all about, it's a very fantastic story. We all know that. It contains all the ingredients, to make it a blockbuster, such as valor and chivalry, cunning and deceit, daring and romance, you name it. And it has enthralled readers for about 5,000 years. But Mahabharata is much more than that. It is a treatise on the realization of our own divinity. It is a spiritual text in this life itself as we continue with our daily chores. Now, to that extent, Mahabharata is the story of life as it endeavors to explore the four what they call purushats, the four pursuits of man. The first one being passion, and that is calm, and its exhaustion, moksha. And in between, earth, that is wealth of happiness, and the means of its realization, that is dharma. So these are the four purushas that are being explored here. And this exploration has revealed that the root cause of all human problems is I and mine. I is the ego, and mine is the attachment. This attachment leads to desire. Desire leads to envy leads to hatred, anger, and violence. And the way to get over it is to remove the I or the ego and thereafter uh, live a life of non-violence. This exploration takes place not only outside but even within us, and therefore all these characters which are there, they take place within our hearts. In fact, right now there's a war going out between in our hearts between our divine tendencies, which are represented by uh, the Pandav's five brothers, Pandav's five children, sons, the Pandav brothers, and on the one hand, and Dhritarashtra and his son Duryodhana and his 100 brothers on the other hand. Dhritarashtra and his sons, they represent the demonic traits within us, and Pandav brothers represent the divine traits within us. All these wars, like I said, they take place within us. Now, Mahabharata also teaches us at various levels. Generally, you are all aware that Mahabharata has been considered to be at a very superficial level, as if the war has actually taken place. Well, that may have taken place too. I won't say it has not taken place. But there's a deeper meaning to Mahabharata also, and that is what we'll be bringing out here in virtually every episode. There'll be short episode, but that's what will be. Mahabharata teaches us through various means. The first one, of course, is through parables, stories from which moral lessons can be drawn. The second one is through uh, direct, through dialogue between two people. The third, which we are all very familiar with, is the Gita, Bhagavad Gita, which is a discourse given by Lord Krishna to Arjuna. And the fourth one is, and in my opinion, the most interesting, is the metaphors which are there. In fact, not merely the episodes, but everything in the Mahabharata is in a metaphor. Every name, every character, every weapon, everything, every object, every boon, every curse, every dialogue, everything, every single thing is in metaphors. When you decode these metaphors, you get a completely different picture, which is extremely interesting. And I would say it reveals to us what is the, not merely that this is a story, but it tells us the entire philosophy, well, I'll use the word Hindu philosophy because Vedic philosophy, if you like, of life. Now we'll come down straight to the, the story of the Mahabharata. We'll start with the creation. Legend has it that Lord Shiva resides in the high Himalayas at the foot of Mount Kailash, where he is ever engaged in his tapasya. Once it happened a long time ago, when greed, wickedness, vice, they went out of control, and there was a lot of strife and war. The earth became very unhappy. And it appealed to Lord Shiva and said, Lord, I can't bear this unholy burden. Please get rid of this for me. Lord Shiva then went into deep meditation. And when his meditation grew so deep that when he came out of it, he found that he was all alone in the center of absolute nothingness and all the worlds had vanished. Then, knowing that no more were there wickedness or sin, he started dancing in joy, in his ecstasy. This dance of Shiva is the Tandav. This dance of Shiva is also the dance of death, sometimes also known as the dance of creation, the evolution of a new creation. This is, in fact, the Mahabharata. And the evolution of a new creation is the world which we live in, the world of opposites, where if there is life, there is also death. Where there is poverty, there is wealth. Where there is ill health, there is sickness. And all kinds of opposites are there in this world. You can't have one without the other. It is in this world that there lived once a king, a very powerful king by the name of Bharat. Sorry, my throat needs a little watering. In this such a world lived a very powerful king named Bharat. Bharat ruled in a land which was named after him, Bharat, whose capital was at Hastinapur. King Bharat was a very wise and just ruler, and all his people were very happy and prosperous. After some time, Bharat decided that it was time for him to retire and move to the forest. One was what they say. But he was in dilemma as he could not decide who to appoint his successor. Also, as is usual with him, he went to his guru and stood before him, his palms joined in submission and prayer. His guru, who was in meditation, sensed his presence, opened his eyes, and said, "O king, what is it that brings you here?" And Bharat replied, "Lord, I've decided to retire and go to the forest, but I have a dilemma. I have 9 sons, and I'm unable to decide who should be my successor." His guru then replied, "Oh, that means you have not Hastinapur to his palace and lived his life as directed by his guru. And very soon realization dawned. He then he had it announced to his people that he proposed to go he proposed to take retirement and go to the forest. And he had appointed his successor, who was not one of his biological uh, son, but he was a commoner. But nevertheless, he was the most qualified and the finest person there in the entire kingdom. Having appointed that, then this tradition of having the most suitable person in the kingdom to be appointed the uh, as the king continued till it was the turn of Shantanu. I'll take a little break here from the story and come to the metaphors that are there. The first one is Bharat. Bharat consists of 3 syllables, Bha, Ra, and Ta. Bha stands for Bhav, Ra for Ras, and Ta for Tal, the 3 attributes of dance. This is, in fact, the dance of Shiva. And in fact, when personified, it stands for the Lord Shiva himself. Each one of us, not just Bharat alone, but each one of us is, in fact, Shiva, the divine energy that is there, personified. Bharat was a king. What does that king mean? Now, we all know that a king is a very powerful person. He sits on a throne, is a powerful army. He himself is a good swordsman, marksman, or whatever. And he has a large domain with his population entirely owes its allegiance to him. He is the sole authority, sole arbiter, and everything within his domain is within his command. In this case, take our body. We have got 5 senses, 5 sense organs, five motor organs, our mind and intellect. And all these things, all these faculties are within our absolute control. In fact, we are also king in that sense because we have got complete control over mind, body, and all its faculties. We are also king. The next metaphor is Hastinapur. Hastinapur may be interpreted in two ways. One is Hasti plus Hasti and Pur. The other is Hast and Pur. Hasti stands for the elephant and Pur stands for city. Hastinapur is thus stands for the mind city, a city where the mind rules. The other is Hast and Pur. Hast stands for the hand, palm, or your palm or the hand. And Hastpur means in that sense where the destiny is within your own hand, where the mind does not rule, where the person individual rules and controls the mind from and thereafter builds his own destiny. So this is the distinction between the two. In most of the cases, we have no control over our mind, and mind dictates us. Most of us are living in the Hastinapur, and Duryodhan, as we'll come to know, as we'll come to see into the story, was one of the chief fellows who lived entirely uh, in the mind-controlled city, whereas the Pandav brothers they lived in the hand-controlled city. They're two different things. One is in which you've got destiny in your own hand, and in the other where you just happen to move along, muddle through life, as they say. Now, Shantanu, when it was his range, we'll come back. Now we're coming back to the story again. Shantanu uh, was also a very wise king, very capable, wise, brave, everything. And his rule also, the people were very happy. One day, as Shantanu was strolling by the river side, he noticed a maiden emerging from the river. He walked up to that maiden and said, "You have a divine aura about you, and your place on this earth can only be in a palace as a queen. My uh, my people will be very happy to have you as their queen." That maiden said, replied, "O king, I can agree to be your queen, but you have to agree to my conditions." Shantanu said, "What are your conditions?" And she said, "One, you will never inquire into my identity. And number two, you'll never question any act of mine, however agreeable or disagreeable it may be." Shantanu considered these two for a few moments and he said they appeared quite simple enough. And he said, "Okay, yes, I agree to your condition." Or he thought, if I have this beautiful maiden by my side, my life will be very easy and comfortable, and I won't have a care in the world. And sure enough, when they got married, he lived happily without a care in the world. His people continued to prosper, and he was all very happy. Sometime later, the queen's handmaiden came over to the king and told him that the queen was about to deliver a child. There was great rejoicing. The king himself was very pleased, and his people, when they came to know, they were all extremely delighted at the coming event. And the great preparations were in store for celebrating this event in a great way. When the momentous occasion arrived, the queen delivered a child. But instead of celebrating, what the queen did was she merely took the child in her hand, walked in her arms, walked up to the river close by, and consigned the child to the river. The king Shantanu was shocked, but he couldn't say anything. He was given a condition was that he'll not question any act of his wife or the maiden, now the queen. So he kept quiet. Anyway, he continued to live happily. Kingdom prospered. People were very happy. And soon the maiden came, his queen's handmaiden came and told him again that the queen is expecting again. Once again, there was great rejoicing and great anticipation. But once again, as in the previous occasion, the queen merely took the child and consigned it to the river. The king this time could once again he kept quiet, he kept his cool. And finally, this continued like this for 7 times. 7 of his children were thus consigned to the river immediately after they were born. When the eighth child was born and the queen started walking with the child to the river, the King Shantanu, he could not restrain himself. And walking up to the queen, he said, "Who are you? You seem to be some kind of demon. Why do you drown your children the day they are born?" The queen looked at Shantanu with great sadness and said, "O king, you have broken the condition of our marriage. Sorry. You have promised never to ask me my identity or any act of mine, question any act of mine. It means it's time for me to leave. Know, however, that I am Ganga, goddess of this river, and these 7 sons of yours were Vasus in their previous life. They had been cursed to be born as mortals, and out of compassion for them, I have released them immediately. That was my promise to them in the previous life. I had to take birth as a mortal, be a queen, but now it's time for me to go. This eighth child of yours is still too young. He needs nursing, and I shall bring him back when he's old enough. Now, here there are certain metaphors are there. First of all, Shantanu. Shant means one who is very at peace, and Anu means atom. Shantanu means one who is absolutely at peace right to the core, who does not get ruffled, irrespective of the situation. This is a very required, goal for any spiritual aspirant. Now, Queen has laid 2 conditions. The 2 conditions were: one, you will not inquire into my identity, and number 2, you will not inquire into any act of mine, you will not question mine, any act of mine. Now, she wanted to convey to the Shantanu, the king, that look, you are a mortal, but I am not a mortal. Although I have taken a form of mortal, and I have come as a mortal in this life, but in reality, I'm one of the goddesses. So she said, don't try to, you have a limited mind, so don't try to figure out who or what am I, what are my capabilities, what are my powers, etc. Also, the second condition was, if you do that, if you start questioning and delving into me, you will get confused, you will be thoroughly confused, and you will get dejected also, because your intelligence cannot fathom what infinity is. Number 2, the second condition was that you will not question any act of mine. Now, if you question a person before he commits the act, then it means you have no confidence in him. For example, you've got a driver and you want the driver to go to MG Road. Now tell him, driver, please go to MG Road. And after he says, yes, okay, I'll go there. He says, but how will you go there? Do you know the route? Tell me what is the route. It means this fellow, you have no confidence in a driver, whether he can go there by himself or not. That is when you question him before the incident. But if you question him after the incident, after he's gone there and he comes back, then you tell him, did you go to MG Road? That means you don't trust him. Now this is very important, She says, you will not question any act of mine. And he questioned that maiden, his queen. After she had committed 6 or 7 times, she drowned it. So she wanted to know, why are you going to drown him? Why are you drowning your children? Now that means he had no trust in her. Now here the thing is that God is really above. His acts, whatever he acts, are beyond our comprehension. So we have to trust him 100%. When you trust him 100%, that trust is called faith. So it is necessary that when you deal with God, you have absolute faith in him. Don't try to have 50% faith or 50% this. Now, sometimes it may appear, why others, even for me, I remember that whenever I say, oh Lord, please get this done. And I found it used to be done, whenever he said something like this. But on other occasions, sometimes I would have a doubt, and I would say, God, please do such and such thing. And then when I go out, I'll say, I don't know, wo to diya hai, whether God will really do it or not. And then I found that He has not done it. And then I would feel that, oh, maybe He has kept a escape door, that when the things are not done, He will say, you didn't have faith in me. Now, which really is true. You must have 100% faith. Why must you have 100% faith? Because God is all positivity. There's no negativity in Him. When you say, please come along with me, He will come along with me. He says, yes, come along with me. He will come along with you. When you say, will you come along with me? That means you've got doubt. That means you say, you may not come with me. Then He says, yes, I will not come with you. That is the meaning of these two conditions which the Queen had imposed. That you have to have complete faith in the Lord. Don't try to question His integrity or His power or anything. Then the six children of the Queen and the King Shantanu, those six children were really the six demonic traits which are there within us. What are the six? There are, of course, hundreds of demonic traits, but there are six major demonic traits. These are lust, attachment or infatuation, then greed, envy, hatred, anger, and vanity. There are, of course, innumerable, but these are the main things which you have to avoid. Now, all these are the things which she was trying to put in the river. What is the river? Water stands for love. In all our scripture, wherever water is mentioned, it stands for love. It is easy to decode that. When our scriptures, all these metaphors, they are very consistent, not only in this Mahabharata, but you can utilize them in all our scriptures, and you can utilize them in all our sculpture and sculpture. You'll find the same kind of metaphors are used there. In fact, that is the reason why when guests come to our house, we first of all offer them a glass of water. Water in any container, it may be a glass, it may be a jug, it may be a tank, it may be a pond, lake, river, sea, or even rain. Everywhere it stands for love. When it rains, they say, oh, it's very auspicious. God is showering His blessing upon us. So that is the status of water. Then Ganga stands for compassion. Recall, Ganga had told the Vasus, told Shantanu, out of compassion for these Vasus, I decided to take human form, human birth, and come here and release them the day they are born. So Ganga stands for compassion. Water stands for love. When all these six demonic traits are within you, when these six demonic traits are there, if you have love and compassion in your heart, all the six demonic traits stand destroyed. They stand eliminated, subdued. That is what is the meaning of the six children who have been drowned there. Now, in fact, it is from here that we have all heard Ganga washes away all sins. Naturally, if you have love and compassion in your heart, then all these demonic traits will disappear. That is the reason. It is from here that you get this saying that river Ganges, a dip in the river Ganges or Ganga will wash away your sins. Now it has become a ritual that nobody understands. You have lakhs and lakhs of people going to Hardwar at Kumbh Mela or to Prayagraj or to Gaya to have a dip in the river Ganges, Ganga. But that is only a ritual, that's only symbolic. The real meaning is that if you have love, and compassion in your heart, then all this, you will have no demonic traits and you will never commit any sin. After that, we have So when this Ganga then tells the King Shantanu that, look, your son is very young, he needs nursing. I will take him away with me. And when he's old enough, I'll bring him back to you after he's old enough. With that Ganga disappeared with his son. Shantanu was very sad, but he couldn't help it. There's nothing he could do. He immersed himself in the affairs of his kingdom and continued to live his life as he normally. But he would visit the riverside every day, hoping that that Ganga will come again soon. And indeed, after several years, about 16 years later, she came once again, this time with a young lad by her side. And walking up to the king, she said, "This is your son Devrath. I've named him Devrath. He has been educated by sage Vashisht in all the arts and sciences. He has been educated in finance by sage Brihaspati, and he has been taught the art of war and all the weapons by Lord Parshuram. In every respect, he is like his illustrious father." Shantanu was delighted, and as Ganga left, he took Devrath back with him, and in consultation with the Rajguru, he declared that Devrath would be the heir apparent and king after him. Excuse me. Now we all know most of the ladies at some time or the other they undertake fast. What is fast? Fast means to abstain from. You may abstain from food. You may abstain from water. You may abstain from anything. You may give up something. Some people like to give up smoking. Some may like to abstain from drinks. Now, whatever it is, fast means to abstain from. To abstain from. Devrath, Dev means God, and Vrat means fast. One who abstains from God, when he is so knowledgeable, then he is deluding himself. What is the meaning of abstain? You deny the presence of God. You don't accept that there is God. You're deluding yourself. That is delusion. So Devrath was delusion personified. He is one of the characters, like others who will come. Shantanu is peace, and Ganga, of course, is compassion. All these characters are within you. You can see what a difference it makes here. Now, once Devrath had come back, and Shantanu then again got busy with his kingly duties. In his empire, in his kingdom, not far from where his palace was there, up the river, there lived a boatman called Dashraj. This boatman would ply passengers from one shore to the another shore. And he had a daughter whose name was Matsyagandha. Matsyagandha was very unhappy with her because she had a very sticky, very stinky odor about her, a very fishy odor about her. She smelled of fish. So she used to be very unhappy with herself. One day, to a good luck, sage Parashar came her way. And she took him in a boat to go across the other shore. She told Sage Parashar that, "Lord, I have a very fishy odor about me. Kindly do something and remove this fishy odor from me. Because of this, I have no friends. Everybody shuns me, and I have no friends, and I'm very lonely and unhappy." Sage Parashar said, "I can do that, but you have to give me something that belongs to you." Now, the Matsyagandha replied, "Lord, I am the daughter of a poor boatman. Even the clothes which I wear are not mine. Other than myself, I have nothing which I can call mine. So I offer myself to you." The sage accepted Matsyagandha, and as he accepted her, a dense fog enveloped them. When the fog lifted, Sage Parashar told Matsyagandha, "I removed your fishy smell and filled you up with divine fragrance, Divyagandha. From henceforth, you will be called not Matsyagandha, you will be called Satyavati." Then he said, "This son of yours, which is there, he has great deeds to perform. I shall take him with me prepare him for his future, and whenever the time comes, he'll be there. In case you need to call him, all you have to do is just think about him, think of him, and he'll be there immediately to do your bidding. With that, he said, now you can go back to your father and continue with your life while I'll take your son with me. Satyavati now, no longer Matsukanda, was very happy with her divine Divgandha with her, with a divine fragrance, and came back to her father. Meanwhile, Shantanu, who used to miss his queen, Ganga, very much, used to stroll along the river, hoping that somehow he'll get a chance to see Ganga once again, although he knew very well that she's not going to come back again. One day, as he was walking along the riverside, sorry, please excuse me. One day, as he was walking along the riverside, he caught scent of the divine fragrance. He went to investigate, and he found that it emanated from that that lady who was there, Satyavati. Okay, I think before that I'll take a little break, because here we must understand the sage Parashar, the interaction between sage Parashar and Matsugandha. If you recall, sage Parashar had said, when she said, when Matsugandha told sage Parashar, please remove the fishy smell from me, he said, you will have to give me something that belongs to you. Now, this is a very important concept which you must know. What is it that belongs to you, to me, or to you, to any one of us? The clothes that we wear, no, they don't belong to us. We have bought them from somewhere, they've come from somewhere. What about our house? Yes, you can say the house belongs to me. I've got the deed, the mortgage, I've paid all the mortgage, all the sums have been paid, and I've got the full title deed. The house belongs to me. But somebody else is living there as a tenant. So yeah, the tenant is living there, but I'm the owner of this house. He may be living there. If you ask the tenant, he'll reply, no, this is my house. I've been living here for 20 years, although I'm paying rent. As long as I'm paying rent, it is my house, because everybody identifies this house to me. This is where my children were born. This is where all my happiness and sorrows have taken place. It has a lot of memories. And I continue to live here. So this is my house. If you ask the architect who designed, he'll say, yeah, this is one of my houses. I've designed 10 other houses. And this house, that house, this house, they're all my houses. Like that, everyone who has contributed to the building of this house will claim it is his house. So the house is not really yours. In any case, after death, you can't take it with you. So what is it that belongs to you? And similarly, you will say, no, this body belongs to, okay, this body belongs to me. But the body also doesn't really belong to you. So what is your body? If you think deeply, your body is nothing but an accumulation of the food that you eat. The food gets, the moment you consume it, it gets converted into you. There's an apple on the table. It is separate, as distinct from me, and it's kept. We know the apple is this, and I'm this. But when I start eating the apple, very soon that apple gets consumed, goes into my body, and gets converted. And this conversion of the food into me starts from the day we are born. So we are not really that body, that food, because that food also has come from somewhere else. It has been grown by some farmer, it has been processed by somebody and supplied to us. So we may have paid for it, we have acquired it somewhere, but it doesn't really belong to us. All this, anything that comes from the earth really belongs to the earth. And all of us, that is why when we are at the end of our life, when we are consigned, we again go back to the earth. That is the significance of what belongs to you. So again, what really belongs to you? You might say, no, that which is within me, which at death leaves the body. That is me. No, that is you, of course, but it doesn't belong to you. That is you. So what is it that belongs to you? The only thing that belongs to you really are your impressions. From the day you are born, In your mind, you keep on creating impressions. Impressions, all kinds of impressions. Impression when you see, which you get through your senses, sight, hearing, touch, taste, smell, all these things, they leave an impression upon you. Then your own ideas and thoughts, they leave an impression. Your passions, they leave an impression. So your heart and mind, they leave an impression. Then all those external factors, they are there, they leave an impression. The same site will create 10 different impressions on 10 different people. So though these impressions are unique, they are called vasanas. Is vasana jitne bhi hain, they are absolutely individual, they are absolutely unique to us, each one of us. And in fact, we are distinguished, we can be distinguished not merely by our faces, not merely by our thumb imprint or the iris of our eye, but we can be distinguished by our vasanas. In fact, Amazon, YouTube, they take this property to identify who are we, and they keep on uh, suggesting things that they, according to them, according to that artificial intelligence, will I have been identified with us. It's as simple as that. This concept will come in little later also when they go into Gyatva. Anyway, I don't want to jump the story. So, what is it that absolutely belongs to us is our vasanas, these impressions, and along with these vasanas, our desires, etc. Now, these vasanas and desires, which are nothing but they form of character and our personality. And these vasanas are really the ego. This is absolutely unique to us. Each one of us is absolutely can be distinguished by our this thing. And vasanas we take along with us after death also. This is our real what belongs to us. Not good, of course, because they condemn you to rebirth. Nevertheless, as long as we are there, keep on getting these impressions. So the entire object of exile, spiritual exile with us, is how to get rid of this. That's another issue. Now coming back to the story, when Satyavati had returned back to her father, she used to still fly the boat. And Shantanu, one day when he was walking along the riverside, he noticed a divine smell or divine fragrance coming from somewhere. He went to investigate and found that it emanated from this lady who was there. He went and proposed to her. This lady smiled. He didn't know who she was. This lady smiled and said, "You'll have to take my father's permission." So he got, "Who's my father? Who's your father?" He's Dashraj, and I told her to go to the house or whatever. So King Shantanu went to her father and said, "I would like to marry your daughter, take her as my queen." Dashraj, her father, said, "O king, my daughter can never get a suitor better than you. But you will appreciate that as a father, I am interested in her welfare. I have therefore a condition which you must fulfill before I agree." So Shantanu said, "What is that condition?" And he said, "You will have to agree, after you, my daughter's children must be the king." Shantanu considered this. This was not possible. Whereas for tradition, the best amongst his subjects were to be the king, and his son, biological son, may not be the best. Then what is to be done? So said, "I cannot agree to this condition because as per tradition among us, only the best among the subjects will become the king." Then he said, "I'm sorry, I can't agree to this." Then he said, "Besides, I already have a son who has been nominated as the heir apparent. So this question of my agreeing to this condition does not arise." He said, "Then in that case, uh, O king, I'm sorry, I can't agree to my daughter getting married to you." Like, King Shantanu then went back to his kingdom, to his palace. And although he continued to rule, he was very sad and dejected and disappointed, and he just could not concentrate on his work. This was noticed by his son, Devrath. and he wanted to, and he tried to find out, but his king didn't, the father didn't tell him anything. So he approached the charioteer and said, where all did the king, you had taken the king? So the chariot said, 2 days ago or 5 days ago, I had taken him to the riverside, uh, to the house of one fisherman, boatman named Dashraj. So he said, okay, let's go there. So he went to that Dashraj and said, what was the problem? What happened? Why is my father so sad? Then Dashraj explained to him what had happened, what had transpired between him and the king. And he reiterated, he said that, look, if your father wants to get married to my daughter, he has to agree to her children become the king. He said, oh, is that all? That's very simple. I am the heir apparent, and here and now, I forsake my claim to the throne. I vow that I will not take my claim to the throne. But Dasha was not satisfied with that. He said, okay, you have taken a vow that you will not take a claim to the throne. What about the children? The children may take a claim, then what will happen to her children? So I can't agree to that. And so that is also easily solved. He said, look, I'm a brahmachari, and I vow I shall remain a brahmachari all my life. Will that solve your problem? He said, yes, that will solve my problem. If you do not take a claim, and if you remain a brahmachari, then there's no problem at all. With that, not Shantanu, Devrath then took Satyavati now, not Matsugandha, Satyavati, in his chariot and rode back to the palace and told his father that he had settled with uh, Dashraj and promised him that he'll not take a claim and he'll remain a brahmachari so that this lady's children can become the king after you. They, when, however, the Rajguru, he came to know, he said, look, you're not competent to take such a vow. As per our tradition and as per this, only the best among the people can become the king. Now, so when you take such a vow, it is beyond your competence. Then the Devrat told the Rajguru, okay, if that is so, I'll take another vow. And my vow is that I will see in the king my father, and I will all the time serve the king as if as I would be serving my father. Will that satisfy you? The Rajguru considered. Now it was not the same thing as being a king. If Devrath was the king, it would be different. Then Devrath was merely an advisor to the king. But those days, the king never took a decision himself. He always took the advice of his ministers, especially very capable ministers, and ruled the kingdom. So he said, okay, this will meet my requirement. With that, it was all roads were clear for Shantanu to get married to Satyavati. But Shantanu was awed by his son, and he said, you are taking such great decisions. Henceforth, you will be called Bhishma, the terrible, who takes such terrible decisions. And further, I grant you the boon of death at will. And with that, Shantanu got married to Satyavati.